Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at upnradio.com.
Good afternoon, everyone.
That split second, you know you're going to go on air. You get so excited.
I do.
I'm back in the studio. Right back where I belong.
I love being with everybody. It's very exciting to be here. We are so happy you have found Distill It, a 360-degree view of life in sports. My name is Wendy Rosenthal, and I am here with the lovely Ava Switzer. Hello.
Hi there.
Look we dressed the same today. We
did.
didn't even plan it.
I love that you've got the gold chain on.
I know.
That's
the whole
so great.
thing.
We never do this.
Great minds think alike. No, because you're usually in a cat suit or something that I would never actually put on my body.
Well, tonight I'm going to the Pantages Theater to see the Bronx Tale, which I'm very excited about. So I'm staying local. I'm going to do dinner with a friend. We're going to do the Pantages Theater. So
you had to dress up a little bit.
I had to clean up, exactly.
She cleans up nice, doesn't she, guys? It's nice that we have a vidcast so you can actually see how she looks. So welcome, everyone. We are so happy to be here today. Ava and I, as many of you know, we are partners in a company called the Distillery Inc. We work with athletes to help them repurpose their athletic intelligence to create a life for themselves after sports, which we know sometimes is very hard to do. And because of this and our passion of sports, we have we've been doing it for a while now. We have this wonderful podcast where we look at sports from every different angle, usually not what's actually happening on the field. Right. But we know that life in our minds is a metaphor, sports is a metaphor for life. Yeah. And so we love talking to everybody from the home athlete to the professional athletes, and also to the people who support and are engaged in the business of sports, and also helping people through sports. And that's why we're very excited to invite to have our guest in here with us today in studio. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him in a bit. But first, we want to talk about, as we usually do, what's going on in the world of sports over the last couple of weeks, stuff that we find is very interesting. And as always, we like to have our wonderful and amazing engineer, Ryan, jump in. Hello, Ryan.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
So nice to see you.
Thank you.
One of the things that has been affecting us greatly in the last few days, we are based in Los Angeles and have been extremely affected by the local fires, but also very sad about the fires that are happening in Northern California, particularly the small town of Paradise, which has essentially been destroyed. But we got an article sent to us today about how sports can heal and how people who are around sports really can lift the spirits of their fellow athletes.
Right.
There is a high school academy up there called the Paradise Adventist Academy. Their girls volleyball team was getting ready to play in a division championship against a rival school, Forest Lake Christian School. But many of the players on that team lost everything, literally everything, to the fires up there. Yeah. And they didn't even have uniforms in order to come play. So the coaches were talking about what they were going to do. And
while we were here worrying about air quality and canceling our kids didn't have games this weekend. Up in Paradise, they were thinking, no, the game goes on.
The game goes on, with or without uniforms.
Sure.
And so the team at Forest Lake decided to do a fundraiser, and it kind of makes me want to cry a little bit. So if I get teary-eyed,
cry watching the video. I watched the video many times, so that I would not
it's
have
on
to cry
YouTube.
On air.
Yes,
with all of you.
They ended up raising over $16,000, and that allowed for every team member to have a new uniform.
Right.
And not only that, each team member was given $300 in, I think it was an Amazon gift card or something, so that they could buy supplies. Sure. And this is why we love sports, because through sport, humanity comes out in many different ways, shapes, and forms. So we want to acknowledge all of the people who are suffering up there, as well as all of the people in our neighborhood that have had to evacuate their homes.
Right. And while we send all of our prayers and healing energy, we also are very grateful to see another example of just how it is that sports can unite all of us, and amidst so much darkness and chaos, bring some sense of happiness and normalcy and manageability to everyone's lives.
Exactly. So thanks for being the good people that you are. Ryan, what tweaked you this weekend in sports, the last couple of weeks in sports?
The deadline for Le'Veon Bell has come and gone.
And how are you feeling about this?
I wanted to get your guys' opinion. I mean, I'm on Team Le'Veon, so I think he should do whatever he feels is best for himself. But I wanted to get your guys' opinion on it.
You know what? I love him as a football player. He's one of my all-time favorites. You probably have heard me say this. I am a Pittsburgh fan. LA always first, but Pittsburgh was my replacement team when all of the LA teams abandoned us
Right.
football teams over the last few years. I think he has to do what's best for himself, but I also believe that I actually think he's shortchanging himself. I don't think he's going to end up getting what he wants, and I feel sad for him in a way because I feel like the other players behind him have stepped up. They have been, they had a rough start to the season, but they've come back and they've won the last 5 games, 6 games.
They're looking good too.
They're looking really good, and I hate that for him because in this industry, you're a star for a second. And so has he put himself in a position where he's now not going to get what he wants from the Steelers, but he's not going to get what he wants from any other team.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. What do you think?
But we wish him the best.
Oh, of course. Listen, I love him.
Yeah.
I think he literally is the most talented running back that the sport has seen probably in the last 20, 25 years, something like that. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I found it to be a unique situation, and I hope that it empowers more people to know their worth and know that they deserve what they get.
Right.
What did they, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I've been enjoying watching the whole thing develop.
Unfold.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens next.
We'll see what happens next. Please. Oh, Rondell, yeah. We'll introduce Rondell in a minute, but we'd love for him to jump in.
With stuff like this, I tend to be on the player side, I guess because being a player. And it's heartbreaking because I think as a player, you put yourself out there and you go against, the organization or the norm, and you kind of want the other players to back you up.
Yeah.
But they're in their own personal spot as well. So
Sure.
your back's kind of against the wall. But I think that it takes great courage to stand against it, and even to stand alone and decide, you know what, I'm just going to hold out.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen after this, but I think that it's a great example of sticking to your core, what you believe in, what you're worth in spite of, what other people think or what they're going to say.
Yep.
Because I think at the end of the day, people are going to respect him as an individual and as a person.
Totally. I couldn't agree with you more. It's from a fan perspective and from I worry about, I'm thinking about him. I'm worrying that he's not going to get what he wants at the end of the day. And his talent is so immense that for me, I miss seeing him in the game.
Yeah.
But 100% agree with you. Now that you've started to voice your opinion, which we love, and we've heard your voice, which is very deep and resonant. I love it. I was saying to you before you came on that I was going to really enjoy hearing you in the headsets.
Yeah.
We want to introduce our guest today. We're very excited to have you in studio with us. Rondell Eskridge. Did I say it beautifully?
Yeah,
Thank you.
That was good.
Okay. Rondell, we're going to let Rondell tell a story because he's going to tell it way better than either Ava or I could. But what is really fascinating about Rondell and why we wanted him to come on is he is a former athlete, played in college, and we'll get some details from you on that. Had a career-ending injury.
As is so typical.
As is very typical.
Student athletes.
And had to kind of recalibrate your life and reset the GPS and figure out what you were going to do from here on in, and then from there on in.
Yeah.
And you really have risen to amazing heights, not only in your business where you're an entrepreneur and we love your businesses. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe you didn't bring funnel cakes. That's all I'm going to say.
Or a copy of the kids book.
Or a copy of the kids book.
Right.
Next time.
But not only that, you give back through your youth faith work and through the camps that you've set up for kids to engage with sports. And so we really want to hear your story. Before we get to Rondell, we do want to say that we love hearing from from you guys. So if you have any questions, comments, want to talk to any of us, you can call in at 323-524-2599, or you can talk to us through Facebook. I am reading comments, and I love hearing from all of you, so please feel free to ask your questions there. Take it away, Rondell. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, basketball has been my favorite sport. Grew up playing baseball, basketball, and football, but fell in love with basketball. And as me and my wife talk about it, it's kind of like a relationship, like the movie Love and Basketball. Like you go through these stages, and you're playing from the time you're, 2, 3 years old. And you picture yourself, getting paid to play, going to the NBA, or, anywhere professionally, but getting paid to do what you love or what have you. And once I got to college, which is also another dream come true, I had hurt my knee twice up to that point.
Can you tell us where you played really fast in college?
West Virginia Tech.
Nice.
Small school in West Virginia in the mountains. And I was, as you were saying earlier, or you're talking about football and also the Fires, sports kind of bring you together.
Right.
They create this camaraderie that you can't pay for. You built this family or this love or what have you. And so we kind of built that in West Virginia with my teammates or what have you. And like I said, you want to play. It's hard to watch other people play when you're sitting on the sideline.
Sure.
And nothing can stop you like an injury. You look at Derrick Rose after he just scored 50 and he breaks down on the court. He just starts crying because it's not because he wasn't capable, but literally you get injured and there's almost nothing you can do about it. And it's heartbreaking. So I had hurt my knee twice, and the third time we were actually playing, this was after the season, and we were actually playing pickup ball. And a guy was diving for a ball, and he dove right into my knee. And I felt something pop or what have you. And again, I had sat out games before that and practices, and you sit on the sideline in the stands, and you just kind of watch the guys play, and you just kind of wish you were in the game. It's like being benched for recess when you're at school. Everybody's playing, and you're just kind of watching everybody. You feel that way, and you just want to get in the game, but you can't. So I had finally healed a little bit, but I still wasn't jumping and running the way that I was used to. And once the guy dove into my knee, I felt myself be like, this is it. And I walked back to my dorm. Well, my teammates helped me back to my dorm. And I got in the elevator, and I was in the elevator with my brother and two of my teammates, and I just broke down crying because I knew that I wouldn't be the same, that this was the third time. And the politics of sports, it changes usually after middle school.
Right.
Middle school is probably the most fun time you're going to have in any sport because you don't really know the politics of it.
I think that's a great point. I don't want to detract you too much, but, we like to talk about that type of thing because we have a lot of parents that watch our vidcast, and we know that, sports, guiding your child through sports, is also can be very difficult.
Yeah.
And can you just, expand on that point a little bit when you say that it's like there's so much politics even after middle school?
Yeah. Once you in middle school, everything it's still kind of fun, and now it's it's a little bit more advanced than even when I played in middle school.
Yeah.
Now you're starting travel ball, you're getting personal training in middle school.
You're seeing the politics filter through down into the system.
You're online. They're scouting you out. You're in the 5th grade, going into the 6th grade.
Yeah.
I see third graders who have a personal trainer who they work out with 2 hours every day, 4 or 5 times a week.
And their parents are defining their image, and they're getting their brand set up and getting them out there just the way they expect to be at the professional level. It's fascinating what's happening now.
The whole nine, and I mean it's a lot on their body too.
Sure.
But the politics of it in travel ball. And so once you hit, you can get away with it up to about the 8th grade. But ninth grade, you got a different type of coach,
Yeah.
a different type of system, and it's a different type of competition. The coach is trying to keep his job.
Sure.
The players want to play, and the parents are ruthless at this
Yeah.
point. You
Yes,
just
they
want to
are.
see.
Did you watch the video of the? Did you see the video of the father who pushed his 9-year-old child?
No.
9-year-old child's goalkeeper. This is just over the weekend. 9-year-old child's goalkeeper. Ball's coming at him. Dad apparently doesn't think kid's going to do well enough. Runs over and pushes the kid down to stop the goal from taking
I got to
place.
tell you,
Parents
listen,
lose it.
I'm now the assistant coach on our son's soccer team, and I got to tell you
Is
something.
it AYSO?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
That's a whole show
Yeah,
on its own.
we
I've got
issues.
issues.
We have
I
issues with
big
AYSO.
issues with
That'll be a whole
Yeah.
show. We will
Yeah.
discuss that though.
No, but I mean, even you see it. You see the parents even now. I mean, like there's a lot of rules around it, so you
Right.
always have like that stick to say, "Hey, you can't do this." But we
Right.
have, a lovely little kid who is
It's-
very sweet. And his parent, nicest guy too. But
Yeah.
my goodness, it's like
Yeah.
your
Once the
son's
whistle blows,
sick.
that's
Right.
it.
We're
They're getting
6.
paid for this
Yeah.
right now. That's how they feel. That's how the
Right.
parent is like, no, this is going to be his career. So,
Yeah.
and it's overboard
Sure.
a lot of times. And even as a coach, even when I coach little kids, I try to keep that perspective in mind that it's supposed to be fun for them.
Right.
When I was coaching soccer, I coached soccer for like maybe 4 or 5 years. But the first year I coached it, I didn't really know all the rules. But because, like you guys, I was coaching little kids. It was
Right.
like second and third graders. They just teach you the basics. And then
Exactly.
after that, you come up with your strategy.
Right.
So during the game,
We haven't come. I think we're in week 8. We have no strategy, none.
I'm super competitive, so I figured it out fast. My first game, I was coaching, and we had this one little kid. I won't say his name, but he was so adorable, and I messed up on my subs.
Right.
So I ended up having to put him at goalie, and he's a space cadet.
Yeah.
You always have a kid on your team who just like.
Oh my
Right,
God, we have
absolutely.
one. We have one.
Absolutely.
We see his mom go over and buy ice cream for his brother.
Right.
And he'll
He'll
walk
take
off
off.
the
Walk
Yeah, he
field.
just
During
walk
the
off
game,
the
he's
field.
like, I want ice
Yeah,
cream
it's
too.
like he's just
Hello?
spaced out, and you got to keep your composure, and you got to try to will him back in, right?
That's why we tell people sports is such a metaphor for life, because if
It
you
is.
watch something happening on the field, on the court, you can see those little kids
Yeah.
growing up to be
Yeah.
that coworker that
Yeah,
drives you up the wall, that
exactly.
boss who
Right.
mismanages
Yeah.
this or that. I mean, you just see
Right.
who they're going to grow up to become.
Yeah.
The
You get
field
to see
says
it all.
Absolutely.
And you learn how to deal with different personalities.
Sure.
And people. You learn people, what they like.
Yeah.
I learned it all through kids.
Yeah. Sorry, so he was. You put him in a goal.
So I put him in at goalie, and the other team, we're on our side about to score, and the other team steals the ball, and they get on a breakaway.
Yeah.
And I look to say, hey, get ready. And I look over, and I don't see him. I'm like, where'd he go, right?
Dude,
And
I'm out. The ball's coming my direction.
Right. So the kids on the bench that I'm coaching, they're on the bench. They're like, Coach, he's laying down. I look, he's inside the goal, and he's laying down with his hands behind his head,
Yeah.
and he's looking towards the goal.
Right.
He's not even looking at
Yeah,
the field.
right.
So I scream, turn around. He rolls over. He looks up, and the ball just rolls right past him. into the
I
goal.
love it.
And I scream at the ref, time out, time out. And the ref's like, there's no timeouts in
exactly.
soccer.
Right.
Yeah, this is
And I'm like, you're kidding me. What kind of game?
Yeah, really.
It's the kind of game
Football.
that has flow. We have this conversation all the time.
Yeah.
Why soccer
Right.
is such an amazing sport,
It
because
is,
there is
it
flow.
is.
We don't stop.
Right.
We just keep going.
Yeah, the refs were cracking. They were laughing so hard because I
Right.
didn't know.
That's okay. We had refs who literally were asking the parents, I'm not sure, is this a corner kick
Yeah,
or is this a goal kick? It's like, I don't know. You went to the class. I didn't.
Right, exactly.
I went to the coaching class, not the reffing class.
Right. So you learn so many lessons
Yeah.
in sports, and it gets really, really competitive. And in high school is when you realize no one's treating you like the little cute kid
Yeah.
that can, dribble the ball or what have you. It's either you can produce or
Yeah.
you can't.
Right.
And even if you can, sometimes the coach just doesn't like you, and they may not play you, and you may just sit on the sideline, and you're also battling with the idea of being a quitter.
Right.
Yeah.
So you decide at that moment, Do I quit because I don't like it, because I don't like the coach, because I don't like what's happening?
Yeah.
Or do I stick it out because I like my teammates?
Sure.
I like the camaraderie that we've built, right? We have fun in the locker room, right? And you're going to miss out on that. And so sometimes coaches are allowed to get away with that because the kid is saying, I'd rather be on the team, even though the coach doesn't treat me like he wants me here. And I've seen that happen in high school. We had a player who actually got into a fight with our coach on our bench because he was so mad and angry at the coach during the game. And they had to stop the game. So sometimes coaches can get away with that because of the deep camaraderie you have with your teammates. You'd rather not quit just so you can be a part of something special.
Well, I think that is something that we see with the people the athletes that we're working with, is that there's a whole ecosystem around being an elite athlete. And our definition of elite athlete is anybody who is playing competitively, who's been chosen for a team, whether it's high school or college or professional, that, there's an ecosystem that an athlete gets very used to. And one of the challenges for the athletes that we talk to is because that ecosystem exists and they're so used to that, being in that pattern, and it includes the camaraderie, it includes the coaches, it includes the workouts, everything that they have to do,
the
being
routine.
on the bus, the routine, that one of the biggest challenges they face when they come out of sports for whatever reason, like yours, is like,
the identity crisis.
Right.
Because
I don't
all
know.
of it
I don't even-
is gone. Yeah.
and you're saying it's even a choice where, as an athlete, you sometimes choose to stay in it because you got those elements, whether you're happy in it or not, which is a very interesting perspective we hadn't really talked about before.
Yeah, and when I played in West Virginia, again, it's not a slight against the coach, but coaches will use that because they know that you feel this way. And especially when you're an out-of-state player and you're in the middle of a season or what have you, and you can't really transfer. And if you did, you got to wait a year. Or, all of these things, coaches will say things to you that would cause anybody else to quit.
Yeah.
But you stay and you stick it out because you're hopeful. You're hopeful that it'll change. You're hopeful that you'll get another opportunity. You're hopeful that the coach will actually change. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way. But, again, you don't want to be a quitter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Before I ask the next question, I just want you to know you have a lot of fans who've tuned in, and they're all saying hi on the comments. So just want to acknowledge everybody who has tuned in. We really appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to write in the comments or call in. So now you're standing there. You've been injured for the third time, and you are faced with a lot of emotions. And now, what do I do next?
Yeah, you're hurt. Because, as I said, as an athlete, you're almost like cattle. And there's always more athletes coming in.
Yeah.
You're younger. They're younger. They have the athletic ability that you may be used to have. And so it starts to set in your mind that this could be coming to an end. And as I said, it's like a relationship where, breakups are bad, in general, especially when you've been with somebody since you were 3 years old, and then now you're starting to say, you know what, this might not be it.
Right.
And for a lot of people, it's like, you ever hear somebody say it's just a game, and it's so offensive to an athlete. You're like, wait, this is not just a game. I've been playing this, you know what I mean, since I can remember. Yeah. And not only that, I've been watching it with my dad or my uncles or what have you. I get very offended when it comes to the Lakers. I'm like, don't. It's a touchy spot, but it becomes this. I used to watch this with my dad when I was little, or what have you. I remember when the Lakers lost to Detroit Pistons in 2004. I was heartbroken. Yeah. Like I was on the team, right? And me and my cousin were, and I remember being so angry about it that my girlfriend at the time had called me, and she called me laughing.
Yeah.
And I hung up the phone and I turned the phone off for 3 days.
Yeah, that was it.
And literally was like ready to break up. Like,
moment of pain.
Right, you think this is funny.
Right,
And, she was so mad. She's like, it's just a game. Like, no, it's not just a game. I've been playing this. I've been working out. I've been conditioning. I've been taking verbal abuse, physical abuse on my body. It's not just a game.
Absolutely.
I've been studying these guys in the NBA. And so at that moment, you realize, shoot, I don't know what I'm going to do after this. You just don't really know where your life is going to head because you haven't done life without basketball.
Right.
At that point.
And it's so interesting because you know, when you're talking about it's not just a game, in the course of what your athletic career is, you developed amazing skill sets.
Yeah.
Right? Because it isn't just a game.
Right.
You know, again, there's a routine, there's a work ethic that you have to live up to if you want to continue to play at a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
There's strategy that you develop, you know, in learning how to play the game better.
Mm-hmm.
There's, I mean, all sorts of amazing skills, math, English, having to speak in front of people, having to be leadership. You get all of these skills, and really people don't realize that sports isn't a game, that there's a lot of kind of technical skills that athletes obtain. And the saddest part for us, and I'm speaking for you, so if feel free to disagree, is that the athletes that we work with forget that they have those skill sets.
Yeah.
And they don't really understand how to translate it into something that isn't sports.
Right. Yeah.
So how did you come to that realization that you could take who you are as a person anyway and the skills that you learned being an athlete and translate that into what you're doing today? You met your wife.
So
we have to acknowledge for sure.
Right.
The women are outnumbering the men in this room, so I think we're all very safe to say that yes.
That's exactly. She is a huge part of that.
Yeah. And that's Tanae. We can say her name.
Yes. My wife. The cutie with the sweater on.
Oh.
She was a huge part of that. And even I think that before I met her, I was already headed in a direction of like working with kids and what have you. Because when I came back, it was during like when the recession hit. And so it was very hard to find a job.
Yeah.
I was depressed for a while. No car, what have you, had to go back to living at home.
Sure.
It's a different world because you're used to being on the road. You're used to being with your teammates.
Yeah.
You leave your dorm, you guys go eat together, and then you come back to this familiar place, but that you didn't think you would come back to the way you came back to it. And it affects you,
Absolutely.
Or what have you. And so I was depressed for a while. And then realizing that while I was at West Virginia Tech, I got involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, which at the time was big. Tim Tebow was over it at the time. And I became one of the officers over that with a friend of mine, Daryl Slack. And so when I came back, I got heavily involved in youth ministry and using what I learned there in sports to paint these pictures and scenarios about life towards the kids to get them to make good choices and right decisions. And I would use these basketball analogies and practice analogies and how to deal with tough situations, all things I learned playing basketball. And I would use those in talking to the kids to get them to see that, they could either go this way or that way and what it would bring. So just started working heavily with kids.
Yeah.
And then I did that, for a while. And then I met my wife, and she seen that I had a really, 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 I guess, gift for working with kids. And I had worked camps, and by this time I was coaching, I was doing PE. And when she came on campus, she was like, "Oh my God, these kids love you," or what have you. And I'm like, "Oh, you think so?" She's like, "Yeah." And at this point in time, I had told her, I was like, "I want to start a camp, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know, I don't think I have the time or what have you." And she's like, "No, let's just start one.
Yeah.
Let's just do it." And she's entrepreneur minded.
Right.
She's, a go-getter. And I was like, "You think we could do it?" She was like, "Yes, absolutely."
Yeah.
And so, I come back and she's got a whole plan. She's got a business plan and the whole nine. I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "Yeah." And just so happened that the way you treat kids, their parents appreciate it.
Absolutely.
If you treat them amazing, if you treat them not like they're belittled, but literally like little people, if you speak to them, talk to them, converse with them, find out what their day is like. These little things build such great rapport with the kids. And then the parents, as a parent, you love somebody who treats your kid amazing. And so because of that, there was already a group of parents whose kids were already in another camp and already doing, who were like, no, we'll take them out and we'll, and and one parent, his name is Neil, he like literally got a group of kids together and was like, hey, they're going to be with you. And, and him and my wife kind of worked it out and what have you. And I was like, wow, this is crazy, and it was an amazing summer, literally. And it was the beginning of something that I didn't think would grow to what it is today, because I think we was 7 kids. And I think this past summer we had like 200 kids pass through. And
what it has grown into is sports, fun, and fitness.
Sports, fun, and fitness
Right.
is the name of the camp. And we try to specialize in unconventional sports or things that maybe not the most athletic kid or the most unathletic kid can enjoy.
Sure.
So give us an example.
We'll do stuff like a scavenger hunt on the promenade.
Yeah.
Or we play flag games, right? Which is not necessarily football or basketball, but it's a game that all the kids love to play because it's a lot like hide and seek. And there aren't very many kids who don't like hide and seek. So these types of games, to get them moving, to get them active, so that they love it, because not every kid that comes through is an athlete.
Sure.
And I don't want to assume that they are.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the parents want them to be moving around. They want them to be active. And they want to be with somebody that they trust and that they can have fun with. So we kind of specialize in trying to create an atmosphere that's loving, that's welcoming, but you don't have to be an amazing athlete to participate. That's creative. We'll do anything from bike rides to we'll go to the movies. It's just a whole bunch of different activities to create this type of camaraderie or even family atmosphere at the camp. And we love it because it's become kind of our own thing. And I don't know anybody who's done it that way. And part of the reason is because I think the kids that I worked with at other camps, they got tired of being in the same place every day.
Yeah.
And so we try to do something different each day.
Well, my kids are very excited about this already. We've had big conversations about sports, fun, and fitness, and so they feel like they have a whole new plan to look forward to for the summer.
Nice.
Yeah, because summer is always the fun challenge. You have to start planning for now in November for next summer, because otherwise, forget it. You don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
How did you bring? You were talking about being a youth minister, and how. Tell us a little bit about the marriage between that part of you and sports, and where the marriage and the crossover is. Because, first of all, I say this as somebody who has, I have a lot of faith and very connected to the universe and to God and all of that. But also it's funny because I watch friends who, and it's terrible to say this, but when they see athletes like praising God and all of that, and they get frustrated, like, why does it always have to be that way? So I'm curious from your perspective, how you've married those two parts of you and how you see that in playing out in sports, just in general.
I think that God wants you to give your best effort. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
He wants you to give everything you got. Don't do anything halfway. Learn what you're supposed to do and do it to the best of your ability. And so when I'm talking to, it doesn't matter if I'm talking to a kid who is an amazing athlete or one who may be struggling or what have you.
Sure.
My goal is for you to give your very best. When I started doing Fellowship of Christian Athletes, it was kind of a switch in my mind, even towards basketball, where I became a Christian who played a basketball player who was a Christian. And then I became a Christian who played basketball, which helped me later on when basketball left. I was able to keep the values that I had built from being a Christian. And so now when I'm trying to use an analogy to explain, it could be something like why not to cheat or what have you. I can use a sports analogy and say, well, this is what happened to so-and-so after they did this. And then I'll tell them the whole backstory. And they're like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, so this is why you shouldn't cheat. Yeah. And these are all morals, moral codes that we all live by, whether you believe in God or not. There's a moral code that we all want people to live by. Don't steal, don't cheat, don't rob.
Sure.
Treat people a certain type of way. So whether you believe or not, I try to enforce these principles when I'm talking to the kids and say, look, your life could be a lot better if you live by these principles. You don't have to look over your shoulder. You'll have a certain amount of peace. If you decide to do things the wrong way, you're always going to be looking over your shoulder. You're always going to be wondering, am I going to get caught? You know what I mean? And I'll use a suicide as an example. I'll say, look, coach got everybody on the line and everybody's got to make the suicide,
right.
And you got a certain amount of seconds or what have you, right?
Yeah.
And the coach says, everybody touch the line, right? And he hits the whistle and everybody goes, right? He was free throw line and back, and then half court and back. Another free throw line is back. And then you get to the other baseline. There's one player who decides not to touch the line and take off early.
Right.
Coach blows the whistle. Everybody back to the line. Try it again.
Start over. Yeah.
It's like you just messed it up for
Everyone.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times that has happened. Yeah. All you got to do is touch the line. Do it the right way.
Yeah.
Right? And I'll explain these scenarios to the kids and say, one time we probably ran about 50 suicides because each time one person just would not touch the line.
Yeah.
And when we finally did it, the coach says, if you'd have done it the first time, we would have only ran one suicide.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? So using these scenarios to promote righteous living, living to the best of your ability, and doing things right the first time.
I just have to say, there's so many amazing comments coming in. I think you had one of your original campers named Olivia has tuned in, and she's saying that she loves you. And no, really, it's really nice to see all the people who are supporting you and what you guys are doing. So that's amazing.
I love you too.
Let me ask you this question. Kind of, you're now influencing kids, but you're saying they're not all totally focused on sports. Mm-hmm. Given what you know now, and given how you saw the system work for you and against you, what advice would you give to either a kid themselves who have a huge desire to be involved in sports at an elite level, or to parents that are guiding their children through what is obviously a very kind of minefield of choices and things that they have to help guide their children through?
Mm-hmm. To the kid, I would say, don't do it if you don't love it. Because if you don't love it, it's going to hurt you anyway. Either there's going to be some good times and some bad times, but your love for it will help you endure it, or what have you.
Or maybe leave it when you stop loving it.
That too. When you stop loving it, don't be afraid to let it go.
That's a great point.
And a great reminder for parents to be able to hear their child say that.
Yeah.
And let it be.
Yeah. As a parent, you see these parents out here, and it's almost like the parent is using their body to play the game.
Absolutely.
And the kid is like, look, I just want to go play a video game. Can I, chill out? It's too much. But I would say that most kids who love the sport, they look at it as if I can't live or breathe, or nothing in life is going to go right without it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm living proof that there's more to life, but there's so much to learn from the sport that can help you in life to build this passion or this dream for something else that you never knew would bring you so much fulfillment.
Right.
And at the time, you think nothing else is going to bring that. And it's like, with all my teammates and people I play with over the years, it's not a successful day unless you play basketball.
Yeah.
If you woke up and you didn't play basketball that day, it was a failure of a day. Me and my brother would wake up and we're like, okay, where are we hooping at today?
Sure.
What park are we going to? Who are we playing against? Are we going to SMC? Are we going to, where are we going to go play? And if you played, then you feel satisfied with that day.
Right.
And then coming out of that mindset to say, shoot, there's more to life after it. And you see players in the NBA who can't leave it alone. Who and you're like, wait, there's so much more you can do. You have all this money and influence, and you know how many people and lives you could touch.
Sure.
That will bring you so much more fulfillment. And that's how I feel now. I probably haven't played basketball probably in the last 2 years. I'm more addicted to golf now than
is that right?
Yeah, than I am.
That's another one that Ava and I disagree on. Like, I love golf, and she's like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah. But I have friends will call me. They're like, you want to go hoop? And I'm like, I'm going to the range today.
Nice.
Which you never think you're going to get to that point. Like when you're little, no one is ever going to tell you that one day you're going to turn down playing basketball on any given day.
Yeah.
And now, you talk to your teammates and they got like kids and families and they're like, no, I feel so fulfilled. And it's like, don't let anyone make you think that your life will be nothing if you don't have the sport.
And you keep talking about something that Wendy and I share with our clients over and over again. And those clients of ours who really do well really get this. And you talked about fulfillment and really being fulfilled. And at the end of the day, it's so much of really what drives us and the work that we do with our clients is being able to help them get to a point where they can see that at the end of the day, that's what matters.
Yeah.
What are you doing now that can fulfill you? It might not be the same as that particular sport, but there will be something that can bring you satisfaction and help you feel fulfilled and help you bring fulfillment to the lives of other people around you.
Definitely.
It's so critical to be able to really understand that that's a goal in and of itself.
Yeah.
But I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this because you said it. Like, you got up every morning with your brothers and all you guys wanted to do was get out to the courts. And one of the things that we find is athletes, you get into that mode. Now you're in high school. Like you said, there's a whole political system that's going on. You've got to work your way up through the ranks. You're praying that you're going to get, some kind of scholarship to a university, or if it's not a scholarship, that you'll be able to walk on and that you'll be able to play in the university. And then, of course, you get to that level and all you want to do is play professionally. And you're on a treadmill of sport. And how do you break into that mindset? Or do you feel like there's any time in that process where, a kid or parents could hear the message of, it's there may be a time when you're not going to play. Build something else in your life that you love and have the same kind of passion for. How do you get through to kids? Having been one yourself.
I try to tell the kids who play sports or not, make it bigger than the sport, right? So I have a group of boys that I'm mentoring, right? And I'm like, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your goal? And like 4 or 5 was like, I want to play in the NBA.
Sure.
Right? And I was like, no, you don't want to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
And they was like, yeah, I do. And I was like, no, you don't. They were like, yeah, I do. And I said, why? And he was like, because, I love basketball and, I get to play at the highest level. I said, what if they made absolutely no money? You didn't get a cent.
Yeah.
Would you still want to play? And they were like, I don't know. Right? I said, what if they had no popularity? But you still had to play. You had to go to the job every day and work at it. I said, what if that was the case?
That would be the WNBA, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that. Somehow,
I'm sorry.
Somehow they manage, and we wish that were the case. But yes.
Yeah.
I hate to say that. It pains me to say it, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that is a reality. And so the kid was like, well, yeah, I don't know. I said, really what you want is you want the stability that they have. Now, it looks fun because you get to play basketball and get paid for it at the same time. I said, but if they didn't get paid, you probably wouldn't make that your life's goal.
Right.
Right? I was like, you can sit at home and play video games until you're 50 years old and you'll still just be sitting at home playing video games.
Yeah.
But that's not what you're really called to do. That's not really what you want to do. And so I was like, I think that you need to make it bigger than basketball. what can basketball bring you? What kind of influence can it bring you? Who could you help if you made it to the NBA, right? Yeah. How would your family be if you made it to the NBA, right? And if you make it bigger than basketball, then if basketball doesn't work out, your goal is still for you to help somebody else. It's still for you to take care of your family, right? So don't put it all on that. Make it bigger than the sport. Make it more positive than the sport. Otherwise, when you get into it and you have no morals, you have no values, you have no bigger goals outside of yourself, then, you might end up messing it up while you in there in the first place. Yeah.
Or then when it, or when you have a career-ending injury that somebody on the court runs into you, and it stops way sooner than you think, or when for whatever reason you don't put up the numbers in 1 year and you get traded, or like the list goes on.
Yeah, and it crushes you. It crushes your spirit, and now you have no vigor for life after that. So it's a tough thing to deal with if you don't have something bigger than the sport that you want to play.
That's amazing. I love that. I want to just read at least one more comment before we move on. Malachi said, "You changed her life forever. You gave her confidence on and off the volleyball court." She said, "You are the best coach she's had." So I have to read these testimonials because they're so loving. You guys are getting so much love today as well. So sweet. So much love from obviously a group of people that really have appreciated what you all do for them. So it's amazing.
Thank you, Malachi. It's crazy when you work with kids. As you teach them, they teach you.
Sure.
Yeah.
They may not know it, but I'm learning as I'm teaching. Yeah. I'm building patience as I'm teaching. I'm building camaraderie as I'm teaching. So you walk away with just as much as they walked away with, I walk away with as a coach. But I think if you don't live in the moment of that as a coach, then it allows you to start treating kids terrible because they lost or because they didn't hit the ball the right way. Yeah. My goal is for you to give your best effort. That is it. Win, lose, or draw. And that I miss her so much.
So sweet.
I'm so glad that she reached out to you. With a few minutes left, you guys are doing a lot of things, and Tanae, you can speak. People can probably hear you in the background. Like I said earlier, we said earlier, funnel cakes and kids books. Like what? Yeah. Tell us what else is going on in your world.
So my wife is an amazing writer and poet, and entrepreneur. So she wrote this children's book last year, and I didn't know she was writing a book. Had no clue. I came home, and she was like, "I finished my second book." And I was like, "I didn't even know you were writing a second book." And she was like, "You want to read it?" And I was like, "Yeah." She gives it to me, and the whole book is about me. Yeah. And I'm like, really? And so when I come home after with the kids, I tell her all of these stories. Sure. So-and-so did this, and then this happened today, or what have you. And she's recording them or taking mental notes of them or what have you. And so then she writes this book called The Adventures of Coach and Little Dell. Yeah. And if she wants to speak about what motivated her to write it, I think that she probably should say.
Okay. I'll make a very long story short. So basically, Rondell came home from work one day. He's a little broken, had a rough day, and he's like, I think I got profiled today. And I'm like, profiled? Like, what do you mean everybody knows you? Who would profile such a beautiful specimen? And he went to lunch across the street from his elementary school, was a grocery store in the morning, grabbed lunch, came back, and a woman seen him walking on campus, jumped in front of him and was like, "Oh, you need to check in at the office." And he's like, "Oh, I'm a teacher here. I need to get on the campus." And she's like, "No, you need to check in at the office." He's like, "I've already clocked in for the day. I'm on my break. I just need to get back to work." She proceeds to grab the lock on the gate, close it, lock it, and walk away. And at that moment, she then just walked on by him. So she turned around. He pulls his keys out, unlocks the gate, and she's like, "Oh, my bad. Someone ran on the campus earlier this week, so we're all uneasy." So I'm literally beyond angry at this point because, one, he always has on his teacher's badge. He's told you he's worked here. You don't work here, nor are you the proper authorities. You are so out of place. Ma'am, you better thank God that I love God more than I love my life. And so my initial reaction, and this is the God's honest truth, I was like, okay, Lord, either he has to come to a district that is more diverse, because Santa Monica Malibu Unified it has a different type of diversity, or you have to fix this, because what we won't do is, as a person of color in this country, being profiled is painful. And so while for other people, like, oh, just brush it off, you can't brush it off because it literally wounds your soul. So you have to come back and deal with the fact that I am dark skinned, that this is my truth, that this is my reality, and this is the world I live in. This is the country that I love. These are, this is where my grandfather served. This is where my grandfather died. And so we have to deal with that. So I spoke to a friend, and, she knows me. So as I get the wrath of a mad black woman, she's like, how about this? She was like, what could you do that would ultimately change the course of the universe in regards to this situation? And so I got to myself and I was like, God, if it be your will, give me something, because otherwise I'm about to act a whole hot mess. And so I had this idea, this book came into my spirit. Let me write a children's book, because I can't change the way adults feel, but I can write something that would affect children. And any child who has ever met Rondell loves him because he's pure, because he's good, because God is in him. And you can't deny that. No one can deny that. So let me not try to fix wounded adults, but let me give kids a firsthand impression or experience with a black man before they can build a stereotype or prejudice. And we'll go from there.
That's great.
So I wrote the book.
Love it. Love it.
That's where the book came from.
And where can people find the book? Where can folks buy the book?
You can find it on Amazon. It's The Adventures of Coach and Little Dell. Or you can find us on Instagram at Coach_Rondell. And book 2 will be out in about a month. So keep up.
That's amazing.
I love it. And I don't want to gloss over so many of the topics that she really addressed here, because I think we could do an entire other show on so much on what athletes go through. Of course, athletes from, like she said, diverse backgrounds go through, but there is a lot that needs to shift. And how great is it that you were able to make an impact on, like she said, not just the wounded adults, but the lives of kids, because that is really where the change can occur.
It's especially when you're an athlete, you tend to be bigger than the average person. And in my case, bigger and darker sometimes is alarming to those who aren't used to it. Even with kids, some kids, they'll see me and they'll turn the other way or what have you, until I work on them warming up to me or what have you. And then there are some kids who are completely innocent and they haven't been affected by the world, and they just express themselves and they run up to you and they give you a hug. And sometimes it's awkward for the parents, because I'll see a kid that I've coached or what have you, and I'll see him in a grocery store, and the kid will see me from across the store and they'll run up and just hug you. And the parent, or let's say they're with like an aunt and they don't know who you are. They're like, who is what are you doing?
It's a little unsettling.
Yeah, it's a little bit unsettling. But you figure out how to win kids over, because it's happened to you enough times for you to know when it's happening and how do I sort of unarm this perception. And we deal with that, not just as athletes, but definitely when you are a certain stature and a little bit darker than.
So we will talk to Rondell and Tanae and put together hot topics for you.
Yeah, for sure.
But before we wrap up, I want to make sure people know how to find you. So your websites, contact information, where can people find you and all the amazing things you do? Instagram
is Coach_Rondell. And Fried Manna is for the funnel cakes.
Which you must bring next time.
Right.
Or at least the batter so I can make it at home, right?
Right. It's Fried Manna funnel cakes on Instagram.
By the way, I love what you wrote about the whole manna from heaven, and this may not. You had me rolling.
Heaven, but it sure
you guys have to check it out. Honestly, it was brilliant.
On our website. So well done.
She is a writer.
So well done.
It was brilliant. Brilliant.
And then there is The Adventures of Coach and Little Dell, also on Instagram.
Okay. And your website is sportsfunandfitness.com.
Yes, sportsfunandfitness.com. We do winter camp, spring break camp.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, winter, spring break, and summer camp.
Amazing.
Good to know.
Check us out.
Might have to hit you up for the spring break.
Yes, come check us out, and thank you guys.
Listen, I want to say both your spirits are amazing. the room has lit up with having you in it. Even Ryan shaking his head going, yes. You're welcome back anytime. I think we could talk about a million other things.
Yes.
And your fan base is huge, so thank you all who listened. For those of you who don't know us, please, we'd love to see you back in our next show. You can find us on iHeartRadio, iTunes, CastBox, Stitcher, and I'm missing one, Spotify, the biggest one that we're on. You can always like us on our Facebook page, that's Distillery Inc., and our website is thedistilleryinc.com. Ryan, as always, we love having you here, and thanks for jumping in.
I love being here.
And we will see you next week.
Yes,
we're very excited. You know, with the holidays, we get moved around, so please join us. And again, thanks for all the comments and for watching.
And Rondell today, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
What a treat.
Bye-bye.
Shows that make you laugh. Shows that make you think. Music that moves you. It could only be one place. Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.